mystery and horror, the air itself is filled with monsters.
Children of the night, what music they make. He's alive! He's alive!
Hello, all you monster fiends, and thank you for joining us for another deep dive, factoid-filled episode exploring Hollywood's most famous monsters. I am your mistress of ceremonies, Sam, and I am joined, as always, by Dan from Bleeding Marvelous. Say hello, Dan.
Ellen. Hiya.
Just imagine if she said that.
In a car park.
Hiya!
I get arrested. Ellen, hiya.
Hiya! I'm gonna do that from now on. Oh, hi everyone, and welcome to another episode of Monsters Up North. I don't know where I was going.
Up north. Yeah, I'll go with that one.
I don't know where I was going with that, but hi, and thanks for joining us. And thanks for joining us last week. Zara was a hell of a guest. Loved having her on. It just felt she was just part of the furniture.
It was very easy.
It was lovely, and can't wait to have her back on again. But she's not here this week because, you know.
Sorry about it.
It's just us. You got to deal with it. We got to deal with us too. And our shenanigans this week. And this week is an interesting one. And I'm thoroughly looking forward to diving into it. So I'm going to get the disclaimer out the way with, and then we can get started. I'll change my voice back to normal. So, I wish I'd stop saying that. Why do I keep saying that? So, everything discussed in today's episode is our opinions and our opinions alone. If you'd like to discuss anything from today's episode, please come and join us on our Facebook pages, or the Discord, or the comment section, where we can have an open discussion. But what we won't have is anyone coming for us and telling us our opinions are wrong, because we can all agree to disagree in fandom. So let's keep it fun, keep it kind, and keep the toxic behavior out of nerdism.
Don't be a dick.
Just don't do it.
No.
Don't do it. I'm going to apologize in advance if it sounds like I am slurping. I have gone and put my numbing lipstick on again.
She will never learn.
I have a lipstick that makes my lips go absolutely numb. So it just feels like I'm about to dribble everywhere. So I apologize.
It's like becoming of a lady.
I don't think they had this in mind when they created the red lipstick. Just imagine. I can already see where tonight's going to go.
Yeah.
Right. All right, I'm going to change my voice again. You ready? I am the writing on the wall, the whisper in the classroom. Without these things, I am nothing. So now I must shed innocent blood. Come with me. 2, the 1992 and 2001 gothic supernatural horror film, written and originally directed by Bernard Rose, and later written by Jordan Peele and directed by Nina DaCosta. Based on Clive Barker's short story The Forbidden, the film follows a Chicago graduate student completing a thesis on urban legends and folklore. We dare you to say his name 5 times as Monsters Up North brings you Candyman.
I can't be asked to say it 5. I mean, that's a lot.
That feels like a lot, given that Bloody Mary was 3 times.
Well, when they wrote the original script, do you know how many times it was supposed to be?
No.
13.
Shut up.
It was supposed to be 13 times in the mirror you say the greeting to the certain sweet man, and he appears after 13 times, and then like the director was like, actually, we'll be here for fucking ever waiting for them to do that.
Here for eternity.
Yeah, so they cut it to 5. So.
I'm pleased. I'm really pleased. So the original film stars the amazing Tony Todd as Candyman. What an unusual name to give such an amazing horror icon. Candyman.
I think it's because of the backs. Oh, it's not though.
So
It's to do with the Forbidden, the Clive Barker version. This is where it gets muddy, right? The Clive Barker short story, which was from volume 5 of the Book of Blood, the Forbidden, is all about a rundown block of flats in the 70s.
In Liverpool.
In the worst parts of Liverpool at the time. And the Candyman himself was a large white man who has yellow skin and a big red ginger beard, right?
Oh, he sounds delightful.
Candyman. And that the reason why they called him Candyman was because the color of his skin was yellowy, so it sort of derives from that. So when you look at the original
it sounds
story,
like that Simpsons character, the Scottish one.
Oh God,
Willie.
Yeah. I was thinking comic book guy more myself, but like
poor man, he's probably got jaundice or something, and we're like mocking him.
That was the thing, and the story is it's similar, but not really where we're going with it. When Clive Barker did the original, he was making a commentary on the class systems of Liverpool at the time, which, if you're politically, this is the thing, right? With all of the original story, the 92 version, the 2021 version, don't know about the 2 middle sequels because I'm discounting those because no, thank you.
No,
but
thank you.
hang on, when you dissect it, it becomes an incredibly political quagmire of themes, and it's very hard as someone who hates political movies in general. Like, I'm not someone who likes political subtexts.
Even though I like Star Wars, but okay.
I mean, I think space bloody politics is a little bit easy to get your noggin around in respect of that.
Oh, you say that. Watch the Clone Wars, jeepers.
No, but it's not real. You know, when you're dealing with, I mean, Candyman's not real, but the politics that
is he not?
The Candyman, the politics that surrounds him is real, and I'm not one for political horrors because I don't know where to put myself, and I don't know what that says about me.
I totally get it. It's so difficult to be like, and this is what I found about this, and on my first view, and now bearing yes, I had seen Candyman before today. However, it was literally a couple of years ago. It wasn't that long ago, and I didn't know where do my feelings fit in this, and it took a long time to break it down. And the second and third one did actually, even though I've not seen it, I know the stories in them, and they do actually help because they don't tell you Tony Todd Candyman's name until the second one. Which is Daniel Robitaille. Yeah, so it's, but I don't know. It's a hard one. Yeah, it's hard.
As a white person in England, which is where the original book was. The book was written in England, and it was based around a predominantly white area. However, when Bernard Rose took it, he took it to Chicago, and he took the premise of it being the most go to the most poorly socio-economical part of the town, and that just so happened to be Cabrini Green at the time. So it made sense that the theme would then be rerouted to people of color or black people, depending on who was in the area at the time. So it is an awkward thing when it comes to us talking about the third one for me, because I can't empathize, as clearly I am not a person of color. I can only talk about my experience as a person watching the film, not being able to experience or empathize with the social themes. I'm just watching it as a movie, so I'm not seeing the political undertones, and I'm not going to make comment on any of that because I want to make it very clear I'm not going to pretend to understand, because I don't.
No, and
I've been born with looking like this, and it's afforded me certain privileges in life that I know people don't have. So it's not for me to comment on that sort of stuff.
No, and I totally agree. And I think for the rest of this, we literally look at it just as the story is and not look into the I mean, there's some parts that's going to come out because obviously the story dictates that, but not going to delve into a lot of detail on it. I don't think we're the right people to do that.
No, and I do believe with the first one, it skirts around it, so you can sort of touch on it, but with the newer one, the Jordan Peele produced the new one, it mainly is the theme. I feel like it's very thematic in throughout the whole thing. So
this is a movie I am going to have to talk my way, and I've already done this once. I watched this when it first came out, the 2021 one.
Yeah,
I watched when it first came out, and I had to talk it through with Ant at the end, even though Ant has never seen Candyman at all. Bless that man's heart, mind. He really puts up with a lot of shit from me. And he's never seen Candyman, but I had to talk it out to him in order for me to understand what it is I just watched. And I've gone and watched it again today, and I have probably more questions now than I originally did when I first watched it. And maybe because I was paying more attention, I was on my own. But I might have been playing on my phone. This time around I wasn't. So yeah, and I have questions. But first I want to go into the first film before we go into that film. That one. Did you know that they used Cabrini Green in real life?
yes.
And they had to make a deal with the drug dealers and the gang leaders to get to be able to film inside Cabrini Green.
Yeah, because they wanted it to be as real and feel as real as it did, because they wanted to bring uncomfortableness to the people watching, because they wanted them to be forced to be put into the shoes of either person, like either Helen and her friend or of the people that lived there. There was like that they wanted that kind of like you to feel every minute. That's why when Philip Glass wrote the soundtrack, he made it as beautiful as he did with the the theme, that
Helen's theme.
Yeah, very.
I have managed to turn into a Tupac song without realizing it. I've been singing it all day and just been going do 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 do, and it's not even that song. It's a Tupac song, but it's so beautiful, and I do love it I did like its use in the 2021 one as well. There is some aspects of that film I liked, but a lot I have to question about. So Candyman, the Candyman. Should we just go through the film and just add bits in as we go along?
Well, did you know that when they wrote it in mind with an actual killing that happened in real life?
That is literally what I have just been looking for when if you saw us searching my laptop, because I know I have taken that down and I cannot find it.
Yeah, the original Candyman, when they took the concept from Clive Barker, and obviously Clive Barker produced this version with Bernard Rose. He sat down, he went through the screenplay, and he signed everything off. But they took the murder of Ruthie Mae McCoy,
yes,
and used her as the Ruthie Jean character that you find in this movie. And Ruthie Mae died exactly in the way that is the most scariest way of entering someone's house, if you ask me. Firstly, why on earth do they make houses that have conjoining mirrors and no wall in between the two things?
That literally was the first thing I told Ant on Monday after, because I'd been doing some reading as I had it on. That's a mirror.
But you just take the mirror out and then you got the back of the other person's mirror. No, thank you.
No, thank you.
No, thank you. One thing I'm glad for here is bricks and mortar for sure, but I remember that, well, I don't know if it was over lockdown or more recently than that, but there was that TikTok thing about that woman who moved into that flat and she took her mirror out and there was a whole nother flat behind her mirror. And she was only mid to 20s, maybe early 20s. And she finally plucked up the courage, because everybody on TikTok was saying, go through the mirror, go and see what's in the other apartment. And literally, it was a case of she took her mirror out. She could feel that there was like a draft. That's the thing that first started her off.
Mm-hmm.
She could feel a draft around her mirror. So she took her mirror out and she could see right through into this other apartment, and it looked abandoned. She got in there, she walked around, and there's like painting equipment, but it looked like nobody lived there, but nobody had been there for a long time either. But there was all like things. It was. I was like, nope.
No, thank you.
Put that thing back, so help me.
So help me. And
No.
Oh, fuck that. I always remember a story I heard on a podcast years ago about a woman who could hear someone in her walls.
Oh.
But everyone that used to think she was fucking crazy and was like, they absolutely convinced her that there was nothing going on. And she found a homeless man living in her attic who could have access to behind the walls.
See, this is the thing. Americans, your houses are huge for the money that you pay for them. We pay probably the same amount of money for a house 1/3 the size of yours, right? In the UK. That's just standard. But what we don't have in the UK is crawl spaces and walls that have like enough space to get a human behind, because insulation, and we're cold, so we have insulation here, and our houses are built of brick. They're not built of wood, so you don't have
literally
that.
made of brick.
And oh god, that just no, I wouldn't know.
We always call American houses, and I'm really sorry to any American listeners, but we do call your houses paper mache ones. Just because every house I've lived in is being made of absolute brick.
Yeah.
Like my house
and I'll blow you away. Yeah.
Is brick. I mean, that wall isn't, but that wall is. Do you know who was considered for the role of Candyman? And this would have if he had played him, it wouldn't have been either wouldn't have been the actor that we know him today. Totally different. I think opinions would be very different on him, especially if he had to play it straight. And two, the movie just wouldn't be this, that have the significant points it wanted to make because of him being in it. That person was Eddie Murphy. I'll just let you sit with that for a minute. Yeah, just let you sit with that for a
studio choice. Eddie, when I think the director's name was Bernard Rose, was it?
Yeah.
Yeah, Bernard met with the studio about this, and he was like, Eddie he has the charisma, but not the forebodingness. He doesn't have that darkness, that like comfortability in the shadows that Tony has. Tony,
oh, God, that man.
Tony described this role as his own personal Phantom of the Opera.
Yeah.
So for him, this was his legacy, his one thing that he wanted to leave the world. Yeah,
and my God, has he? Because holy shit, he is amazing in this. But I think there was something there's a lot of romanticist, if that's a word, in this film that it took a long time for me to see. It was very one-sided, but the way that it was being wrote for me to read was two-sided, and when I'm watching it, I'm like, no, that Helen didn't feel like that. He may have saw something in her from his past, but that was not Helen. Helen didn't feel that. She had to be hypnotized to be under his control.
Yeah, I think the thing with this film is it's a horror movie at its core in one way, but in another, it is a movie about seduction, about romanticism, about unrequited love, about just about like the treatment of humans, and it can be seen as a good old-fashioned revenge movie. It depends what shoe fits
you. Yeah,
what you think this movie is. And I can see it from all of those perspectives. I can see it as a love story. I can see it as a revenge movie. I can see it as a good old-fashioned horror. I would never call it a gore film, even though that's what a lot of critics at the time called it.
Hey, you don't see a death. You see a death, but you don't see a killing. You hear it, but you don't see it.
Depends on what version you watched.
God damn it. Well, guess what happened when I first put it on? Tony Todd was speaking Spanish.
Amazing.
Fuck's sake. Do you know what the worst part of it is? It's always a movie that has a long intro before something's said, and I'm like, for the love of fucking God, man. And then starts speaking in Spanish. And what I read here was viewers may think of Candyman as one of the horror genre's most terrifying villains, but Bernard Rose said that the idea always was that he was kind of a romantic figure. Romantic in the sort of Edgar Allan Poe sense. So it's the romance of death. He's a ghost, and he's also the resurrection of something the kind of unspoken or unspeakable in American history, which is slavery, as well as he's kind of come back and he's haunting a new version of that. But which I get to a degree. Or the racial, like, he's come with the racial segregation in Chicago. So yeah, that makes sense. But yeah, it's very romanticized. To a degree. But there was an actual killing in Capri. Do you know what? I have been practicing this all day. Cabrini Green. There was an actual murder happened on location while they were shooting.
Yes.
1992, October 13th, 1992, just before the film was released, actually, a boy named Dantrell Davis was killed by a stray bullet as he left school. The shooter was identified by a local gang, and he was convicted of first-degree murder and received 100-year sentence.
Good.
Yeah. Couldn't have happened to a nicer person. Virginia Madsen in this movie is absolutely fucking breathtaking.
Every movie, like every shot they did of her, this is where I believe that Bernard had such he must have had a massive love affair with like 40s and 50s movies, like and like movie noir, because of the shots that he did of Virginia's face were framed beautifully, but they were very much of the old black and white movies where the bloke had gone off to war and she was sat there and you see the single teardrop, and her hair was done in such a way where she just looked like a starlet. She didn't look there wasn't like this the one thing I did like about him, when he said when he wrote Helen, he wasn't writing Helen as a victim. And she was never at any point a victim. She would not allow herself to be. So when he kept saying, be my victim, the only way he could get her to be that compliant was by hypnotizing her.
Which apparently she claims actually happened.
Yeah, I've seen it. Apparently it did happen.
Wow.
They had a hypnotist on site, and basically to get her in that trance-like state where they did the beautiful, the framing of her face where she looks absolutely stunning, they got her to the pre stages where she's just about to go under but not quite. They wanted her to look void of anything other than just
beautiful and docile and
basically, and she had two trigger words. They didn't say what they were. One was to trigger the hypnosis, and the other one was to end the hypnosis. And she didn't like it, so she asked for it to stop happening. She said, I can now recreate it. I know what it feels like. I can do it. But they wanted to see if it was still stuck with her. So one day they just shouted out the trigger word, and it did. She stopped in her tracks straight into that fugue state, and they were like, okay, this is not good. We need to get the guy to get rid of this, because what if someone says that word and she's out in town? So it was one of those things which I thought was fantastic in one way, but kind of scary in another.
Good sport on her for wanting to commit, because that shot is the shots that you see when Virginia is hypnotized is some of the most breathtaking shots of the whole. And this is even with Tony Todd standing in front of it, and he is just a marvel to look at. Like, it's 6'5". That man is beautiful.
But this is why there's no way Eddie could have done it. Eddie's
he's 5'9". Yeah,
he's 5'9". The person that they were going to cast before, one of many people they were going to cast before, we most know her, depending on what movies you watched in the 90s. She's been in films like While You Were Sleeping. She's been in films like Speed, you might know her from.
Oh, but one of my favorites, Practical Magic.
Yes, exactly. So Sandra Bullock.
Sandra Bullock.
I love Sandra Bullock, but I cannot see that kind of performance coming out of her.
No.
And it's not because I don't think she's capable of it.
No.
But because we've seen her in so many different things. Same with Eddie. You've seen that Eddie has been typecast as this goofy character, this Axel Rose character, you know, and he'll be like that in anything he ever is. And then Sandra's always the lovelorn love interest, you know. Okay, now she's a bit older, she does play different characters, but back then that's what her type was.
I love Sandra Bullock. I've never not watched a film with Sandra Bullock and went, oh, that was shit. I mean, I love Miss Congeniality. Who the fuck doesn't?
What's your favourite time of the year? April 16th or April the 21st, because it's warm enough to just wear a jacket. That's not the real quote, but that is one of my favourite quotes.
I love it. But the turning point for me with Sandy B was Bird Box. I didn't realize that woman had that range, and I was like, oh shit. And I've seen her in a few other serious things, and I'm like, fuck, Sandy B can actually, like, and I'm not saying she can't act, it's just she's always fit into a role perfectly because it's almost been written for her.
Yeah.
But but I can't. The only reason I can't see her as Helen is for the exact reason you said, because we've seen her in so much you couldn't fit her playing Helen. But at the time, Sandy B was an unknown. We wouldn't have if we did get her, this would be the first that we got.
Then I don't think we would have got While You Were Sleeping, Speed, Practical Magic, Bird Box, Blindside, Bullet Train, Lost City, or all these other movies that come into mind. I mean, she's done way more than that, but you know, when you're just sitting there and you think to yourself, I don't think we would have got those movies because I think they wouldn't have known how to cast her. Same with Virginia. When Virginia left this, they didn't know how to cast her in other things.
It's understandable.
I mean, she's from an acting family, as some people may know or may not know. Her brother is quite famous,
just a little bit famous.
He's one of Tarantino's boys. He's Mr. Blonde, he's known as. He's been in a lot of movies, and it's Michael Madsen, obviously.
It's Bud.
Yeah, he is Bud. But Virginia went on to do a few bits here and there. She did the Species movies, if I remember rightly, with Natasha Henstridge, who married Darius Dinesh, R.I.P. Darius. Give me, baby, one more time.
That's gonna live with me forever.
Google it, it's real.
No, I'm just your version of that. It's gonna live with me forever.
That was good if you ask me.
And I
make that into a dance track.
I totally forgot about that as well. Oh, that's so sad.
It never fails to absolutely knock me to the floor to think that Darius Dinesh married Natasha Henstridge, but he also went swimming in the Thames, got bit by a rat, got Weil's disease, and then ended up in the hospital for God knows how many years, comes out and then dies. So I don't know.
So sad. It's so sad. You always, I know, like, we all know him from, if you're from the UK and of a certain age, you'll know him from Pop Idol days, and he was considered a bit of a joke, but he just come across as incredibly sweet. And I don't know. It is sad. There's a bit of a biblical tone to this movie as well. The story of Samson is what Bernard Rose used as inspiration for Candyman's story. Samson dismayed. You can tell I'm reading from notes given, because there's no way I would use dismayed in any form of sentence. He dismayed his parents by taking a Philistine wife, pausing only to slay the young lion whose carcass bred bees and ran with honey. So the Candyman outraged the bigots for his love for a white woman, and was murdered by being smeared with honey and stalked by killer bees. Now, I don't believe you get that story in its entirety.
No, you get like a flashbacky bit of exposition in the movie.
but it's fully broken down in the second one. The second and third one does have some good lore points that kind of structure the first ones, but the overall movies, looks wise, don't look great. Very, very of the time of when they came out. The third one, I even think went straight to VHS. I don't even think it got a theater run or even a press run. But
Farewell to the Flesh was the second one in 95, and 99 was Day of the Dead. That's only got 9% on Rotten Tomatoes, and Tony Todd even said to this day that was the worst showing, and he regrets it immensely. But
I don't think
you know
there was
going to be a number 4 before this one came along.
No,
the sequel, whatever we were going to call it, came along. Yes, and it was around the time when a very popular film came out, Freddy versus Jason. They'd looked at pitching all the endless serial killers against each other.
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. So imagine 6'5" Tony Todd up against 4 something Warwick Davis as the Leprechaun. That's where they were going with the next matchup.
I've got to do it. I'm the Leprechaun.
Garth's like, no,
I'm the Leprechaun.
I'm the Leprechaun. I need a torch. Yeah. Oh, that'll never get old, that bit.
That is going to be. I feel like that's going to be round about a Halloween special. Is the Leprechaun?
Which one of all 20?
We'll do one.
The Leprechaun. I'm the Leprechaun. Yeah. Oh, that's going to be.
You're going to make me choke.
That's going to be freeze framed and photoshopped. But
no. You realise who listens and watches these podcasts. You know what you're doing.
I dare you, Christopher. Have at it. But yeah, those two films, I'm so glad that the Candyman versus Leprechaun didn't happen, because Tony turned around and he went, under no circumstances. No. He was like, that you could have come and pitched me against Freddy, pitched me against Jason. He said, I have nothing to do, I've no issues with the movies of the Leprechaun, but how ridiculous are we taking this, that you're going to have a 6'5" person against 4 something person? And all he does is run around and goes, where's my gold? You know, and it's like,
I'm the Leprechaun.
It ends up sounding really Scottish, and it's like
mine did right there.
No, even Mike Myers does when they're doing it in Wayne's World.
Oh, it's ridiculous. I mean, and I feel Tony Todd would be up for anything. Like, I'm not saying like he's like easy, but I just feel like if it's a good project, he'd be like, yeah, of course, why not? Let's get back to being the Candyman. But yeah, the leper.
You're doing it to yourself now, woman. You're doing it to yourself.
And so on a serious note. On a serious note, Candyman combines elements of 2 real urban legends.
Yeah.
Before we actually, it's quite easy. Bloody Mary, it goes to appears by chanting her name. Now, she was a big one when I was growing up.
Yeah.
She was the one. We had Bloody Mary and Mary Ann Cotton. So Mary Ann Cotton, if none of you know her or from my area, she was a notorious serial killer. She killed people by poisoning them with her black kettle of arsenic that she used to get from the wallpaper in her house. The black kettle with the arsenic in is actually at Beamish Museum in their archives. If you ask them nicely, they may show you, but they may not. But yeah, she's a notorious serial killer from my neck of the woods. I actually lived 2 streets away at one time from where she used to reside. Not where she killed people, but where she resided. And she was hung in Durham for her crimes. And the place of where, so I'm from a little village called Shiny Road that is within Horton Spring. And I went to a school in Horton that when you look directly over the horizon, you can see Durham. And we used to get a blonde bit of hair, had to be blonde, with a gold ring, and dangle the ring and do the chant. What was it? Mary Ann Cotton, lying in her grave with her bones all rotten. can't remember the rest of it because this was almost 25 years ago. So something along those lines. And we used to wait to see if it swung.
Yeah.
Mary Ann Cotton was with us.
But was she though?
No, she wasn't.
Yeah, we had similar ones. We had like Mad Bess, who supposedly lived in the woods, because they used to name the woods after her. And the woods were called Mad Bess Woods.
It's not funny.
Well, what the legend was, she was from, they had a workhouse in the woods, all like hundreds of years ago. There was a workhouse in the woods. And something happened in the workhouse where she either led a revolt or a revolt happened and she was blamed for it. And there was witchery afoot and all this sort of stuff anyway, supposedly again. They said that if you go into those woods at night, she'll think you're one of the people trying to hunt her down, and she'll curse you, or it was one of the legends, the urban legends. Oh
no, I'd be like, I'm coming to join you, pet. Viva the revolution.
That was one of the legends. The other weird urban legend that we had at school was you had a painting at the top of the stairs at my school, and it was of some bakers. And
where did you go to fucking Hogwarts?
Well, it was one of these ones where everybody used to say, count the amount of bread that's on the baker's thing, because every time you went up the stairs, it changed.
Did it?
In the picture. Honestly, I feel like a kid when I was a kid, because I never used to look at it. I used to walk up the stairs looking down, because I used to be so scared to look at this picture, because it was one of these things that was drummed into you. So I never looked at it, because I was like,
that's something like the witches, fuck that.
But yeah, we used to have shit like that. That was the kind of stuff we used to taunt, and that was in junior school. We're not even in high school, at the senior school at this point.
I was at senior school because my senior school is in Horton. I went to primary school in Shiny, but yeah, my seniors was in Horton, so I was definitely at senior school when we were doing that. But the Bloody Mary one, that was a popular one.
Yeah.
No fucking happened.
No.
Still here.
Yeah. See, this is the thing. This is what people tend to forget, because Clive Barker come under a lot of shit. Because they after Candyman 92 came out, he got a lot of heat from the Black community, because they said that he'd taken their urban legend and exploited it. And he said, hang on a minute, I'm responsible for this urban legend. And in my story, when I wrote it originally, he's white, so I've not exploited anybody. And he's had to go on record and do videos over the years to say,
that's so sad. Even
though Bernard Rose went and sat with the NAACP to double check what their opinions were on this. Is it borderline racist? Are we doing something wrong? Is there anything we need to know about the community? I don't want to be insensitive. In 92, that was a hell of a thing to do.
That's a huge
consideration.
Massively, because there's a lot of people who wouldn't even have that inkling of a thought to go and do something like that.
And they were like, why are you even here? Yes, of course we want a black horror character. Please do it. Go on your way.
Yeah, I totally get that. And also, we have our urban legends too. Like, yeah.
I mean, that's the thing. He's like, that people honestly believe that Candyman was a real urban legend due to the movie saying he was. They didn't think upon themselves. I mean, okay, 92, no Google. You have to go to the library to work out whether Candyman was real or not. You'd have to read books to find out, or have access to a library or books to find out if he was a genuine thing. You don't just take it for face value that you're watching a factual drama rather than
it's a documentary.
Yeah.
We're watching a documentary. I didn't watch this growing up, only for the simple reason, and I hate to say this, I just thought it looked fucking boring. I'm not gonna lie, like I really because of the I didn't appreciate movies like I do now, and like growing up, horror was Dawn of the Dead, Friday the 13th, like that style, like not even Dawn of the Dead. Actually, I didn't really appreciate that until I was like in my 20s or something. But this I didn't appreciate the nuance, the noir to it, the actual like glamour to it, because there's a lot of, for all it is incredibly urban, gritty, there's a lot of beauty behind it too. And I would never have understood that back then. And that's what probably to me was boring.
It's the
now
pacing as well with this film, though. The pacing isn't. It's not slow by any stretch of the imagination, but it's very.
it gives you time.
Yeah, they take the time with certain scenes that I don't feel like you need that amount of time with, but it helps you sort of gather your
Process.
thoughts on what you've just seen or
Yeah.
what you think you have seen, because in the sequel adjacent, whatever we're going to call that thing, they use a lot more tricks in that to keep your subliminal mind going, whereas this one, they give you those empty pauses, those long scenes that you don't really need to see to be able to take in the level of horrificness that's just appeared to you, you know, like regardless of whether you think a man holding 20,000 bees on his face and in his body and in his mouth is not,
And
is
he
or not.
did. And he did. Tony Todd, what a fucking legend, putting little baby bees. These bees were bred specifically for this purpose, and they were put into a good home afterwards. However, Tony Todd, legend that he is, negotiated for every sting he received.
Yeah.
He got an extra grand,
$1,000,
extra $1,000, and he got stung 27 times.
Yeah, I've seen reports from 23 to 27, but I mean, just to make an extra 23 to 27 grand on set when I don't know what his wage was from the movie, and as a relative unknown, I'm guessing it wasn't super high anyway. So to walk away in the 90s with 27 grand, that would be a hell of a lot of money by today's standards. You're probably looking at about 80 grand by today's standard.
Yeah. They were all baby bees. And like I said, from what I read, because I did have to read them to make sure the bees they got sent off to a hive.
And you know, the same guy who breeds the bees was also responsible for a very traumatic death for nearly every child of the 90s.
Yeah.
He needs his glasses. Where are his glasses? Yeah. Macaulay Culkin gets stung by bees and dies in My Girl. My favorite story, Jamie Lee told a story. I think it was on the Graham Norton show, and this always sticks with me. When they were on site, because of Anna Klumsky and Macaulay Culkin being on set, her and Dan Aykroyd weren't allowed to swear. And she said, I've got the worst potty mouth in the world, so I empathise massively. She said, so anytime the crew swore, I swore for shit, you put in $1, for fuck, you put in $2. She said, so we had these two like massive jars and at the end of the filming, when they wrapped up the bit where they jump in the water together, her and Macaulay, at that point, they get out, they're wrapped around, you know, and she said, I walked up to them, she said, and I gave them one of these big, you know, there was like, she said, about $500 in each one of these. She said, and I gave it to each of them, and I just stood there and they looked at me and I went, fuck you, and walked off. Jamie Lee Curtis told Macaulay Culkin, fuck you, when he was about 8 or 10 or however old he was in that film.
What a legend. I had a very depressing moment the other day. We were talking at work, because I do work with one of my friends. She's a little bit younger than me, and we like to do what did you know, what have you not seen because you didn't exist at the time.
Oh God.
And My Girl came up, and I went, I'm leaving this conversation. It's a conversation that depresses the shit out of us. Because she was, well, what was the first film you ever saw in the cinema, or that you can remember seeing in the cinema? And I was like, well, it was All Dogs Go to Heaven. And she was like, mine was Hercules. I was like, yep.
Labyrinth.
No. Wow. I mean, we're not that far off in age, so we can't get too depressed.
Labyrinth, the Care Bear movie, Back to the Future 2, and
Care Bear movie.
God, there was one more, but they were the three that stick out the most to me as a kid. Like the three I remember going to. Oh, Home Alone. Home Alone. So that's, I remember going to see 7 to 11 there. But
yeah, I remember going to see Home Alone because it was at the Metro Centre, and it was the first time ever we were seeing a film in the Metro Centre. And it was when the IRA were very much active, and we got removed because a bomb threat came in, and I didn't get to see Home Alone at the big cinema. I was devastated.
But that goes to show like how very rarely you could afford to go to the cinema when I was a kid, because those
it was
four
a
movies,
luxury.
Yeah, those 4 movies were seen over a period of 4 years. We're talking, I think, Labyrinth was 96, 97, then Care Bear movie, then obviously Back to the Future Part 2, and then like Home Alone came out in 91. So
my first ever pirate movie was Jurassic Park. That was a fucking marvel. That was magic. And we used to have a man in a van who used to come round and used to get the special videotapes, and not that kind of special videotape. And and my granddad had rented Jurassic Park, sold it to his dinosaurs, and it was someone recording from in the cinema, and it was like, holy shit. Little did I know what the future held for for that. Should we get into the films? The film.
Yeah, I mean,
and we don't have to go by scene, just a brief talk.
I want to just quickly have a chat about the guys who designed Candyman, because this isn't what he looked like in The Forbidden. Again, he was some weird hairy looking bloke. I couldn't find much because there's not a lot out there at all about the behind the scenes of like how they got there and all this sort of stuff. But
I couldn't find anything. I even had the time to go and look for like stuff on YouTube, and very little on YouTube to do with Candyman.
Yeah, there's 2 guys. There's Bob Keane, and then there's, I want to say, now forgive me on his pronunciation of his surname, but Mark Coulier. Or Coulier, I'm not really sure. It's one of,
we'll go with Coulier.
But Bob worked on Hellraiser, Nightbreed, Life Force, Dark Crystal, Star Wars, Superman, and Mark worked on Poor Things, Elvis, Suspiria. Jeez, why can I never get that first time? X-Men, Harry Potter, AVP, and Event Horizon. So they had this. I mean, obviously, a lot of those are newer than that movie when it came out, but they had it from being on Star Wars and Superman alone. They had a knowledge of how to make iconic.
Yeah.
Because you look at the characters in Superman alone, like the characters in Star Wars alone, they are characters that are iconic. You could have their shadow and you know exactly who they are. So for them to be able to do the same thing with Candyman.
And it's so simple, but yet so rememberable. Rememberable, is that a word? Rememberable? But you do remember? You do remember. Where's my brain gone to today? This is meant to be like a serious one. This is serious topics and serious movie.
Where is my mind?
In the toilet. Yeah, but it's such a memorable look.
Yeah.
And it's very simple. The coat, the hook, him.
Yeah.
I think overall, he is the embodiment. You could put him in you could wear a t-shirt and jeans, and he himself in his presence would make that work.
Because I mean, I saw a video where they said Tony Todd could have played John Coffey, but Michael Clark Duncan couldn't have played Candyman.
Yeah, no, because he's really soft-natured. No, I could not see that at all. But I could see Tony Todd with that velvet voice. Oh my gosh.
He doesn't actually speak like that. You do know that.
But he can still do it.
Yeah. Basically, when he got the part, he realized that he needed to give it something that seemed otherworldly, like that had like a resonance to it, it gave a feeling, like he wanted to for it to have a response rather than just a melodic sound. Whilst he manages to nail that when he's going Helen, it's like he manages it, but he dropped his register by an octave, and he even pushes it to 2 octaves at some point when he drops his register, and that's just talking. That is really difficult to do, talking. Singing easier because you can pull it through melodies, but talking, he had to retrain himself to drop to as low as he is. Because there's a video on my TikTok, and Tony did a small video for The Page a couple of years back in 2022.
I watched it.
Yeah, and you hear he's not as deep as you anticipate him to be, because obviously that's
but you kind of get that impression because he's in The Crow. Like, I know him a lot more because of The Crow, and he doesn't really talk like that in there. His voice is quite low, but it's like when you're up against the guy who plays the villain, and I can never remember that guy's name, and he's fucking phenomenal. When you're up against him when it comes to voices, you're not gonna win.
No, I mean, for the more younger audience, Tony, if you haven't seen Candyman and you want to see it, you should. But secondly, he is the he's either the coroner, morgue technician, or somebody in Final Destination movies as well, right?
He's the one who explains death.
Yeah, he's the one who explains death to Devon Sawa, and you know,
them.
He's a good actor who doesn't get enough roles because people don't know how to cast it. I think that's a lot to do with it. I feel like they're waiting for that creepy, mysterious character. Oh, Tony Todd.
We'll take him.
You know, and he could be a love interest. He's proven that he's more than capable of doing a love interest. So
yeah, because he loves in this film in his own special way.
It's the only reason he came back, because he loved I use Helen in air quotes purely because we don't know what the name of the lady was in the first one. So
no, we don't know his actual true love, but Helen is an embodiment to him.
Yeah.
But not in name.
Right, we'll go through the film if you want.
Yeah, only because I want to talk about how much of a shit her husband is.
Xander Berkeley.
Fuck me, that man is fucking from the second he comes up, he just screams red flags.
Yeah,
and it's like, oh, you are just an absolute shitbag.
Yeah.
But I'll say that many times if we're going to talk about this film, because
Xander Berkeley, for those of you again that haven't seen this film, he has been in Terminator 2. He was Vasquez's husband when they were supposed to be adopting or fostering John. And he was in The Walking Dead. He played one of the many dictators that they've had along the way in The Walking Dead. So Xander Berkeley, batshit crazy, but yes, he's there.
I totally forgot about The Walking Dead, and now I can picture. Oh, he's a shitbag in that and all. He plays shitbag very good. But Helen Lyle, our hero, not our victim, but our hero, or heroine, if you want to get it right, is a university researcher. Now, is she just a researcher on urban legends? Because that is one hell of a job.
I'm not sure what their real job was, because I mean, it's not really a job to be a researcher of urban legends. I mean, to me, it sounds like she was working there to write theses and maybe teach. I'm really not.
Well, it kind of gave me Big Bang vibes. You know how Sheldon and them work in a university, but really are doing thesis work and practical work. It almost felt like that because she kept referring to this paper that she wanted to write, and she had to do it before her husband, friend, was going to release. She wanted to do it before him. It was going to be groundbreaking within urban How you can do groundbreaking stuff in urban legends, I don't know, unless you can fucking prove it, which I guess is what she was trying to do. I don't think it intended to start that way, but it certainly ended that way.
Yep.
And she ends up, I don't know if Candyman is even coming to the equation in the beginning, or it's just something she falls upon.
She's researching. They do a bit of her when her, I think it's Bernadette, her friend, are interviewing people about urban legends, and then the cleaner comes in, and she mentions to the cleaner or something, oh, do you know anything about any urban legends? And she says, oh yeah, the one about Candyman and my friend knows him, and and then she calls in the other lady, the other cleaner lady who comes in, and she's like, yeah, it's over at Cabrini Green, my friend lives there, and the whole thing with Ruthie Jean, we all know it was Candyman. And so she gets hooked from their story, and that's
Yeah.
when her and Bernadette decide to go to Cabrini Green to have a look,
So
which
yeah.
whew,
Yeah, turns out great. Yeah, they're working on a thesis on how Caprini Green residents use the Candyman legend to cope with the hardship of I can't say the word,
it's
inequality.
yeah, they basically use the Candyman as a form of justice on
Well, that's the story
on
in
the
general,
estate.
isn't it? The
Yeah,
reason he's
basically,
coming back is to claim justice. So if he's
yeah.
there, justice is being prevailed.
But yeah, they used him as like the icon to say, "Oh, you better be good, otherwise Candyman will get you." It was this whole kind of like the thing, like as you see with that little kid, Jake.
Oh, he was so adorable.
Did you hear they called him One Take Jake?
Because he was that fucking good.
He nailed his lines every single time, and so they only had to do one take with him. I think his name was Dewan, and they went to the premiere, and Dewan was so scared. He said, "Can you only call me in when it's my bits?" So they let him come in and
Bless
watch his
him.
bits, and then leave. I mean, a kid of that age shouldn't be in cinema watching an NC-17. God's sake. I mean, that's the same as a 15 over here, an NC-17. It was going to get an R rating, which would be an 18 over here, but they cut the scene down that when she's in the room with her doctor. But we'll get to that bit. And that's hence why they cut the scene down to be able to get the NC-17 rating, because they knew more people would be able to go to a 15 than an 18.
Right.
So they'd
That
get more
makes
success financially from it. So
that makes a lot of sense. Well, Helen decides she gets quite obsessed with Cabrini Green to the point where she goes back, and she goes back alone after she meets the kid, and he tells her of the Candyman, and he's very real. And she walks into and do you know what? I could smell that toilet. When she
you
walked
smell
into
what
that
they wrote
toilet,
on the wall, yeah.
yeah, I could smell that toilet. And I felt really uneasy when she was in there. And a man with a hook on his hand walks in and claims to be the Candyman. You found me. I'm here with a lot of drug dealers around me too.
Yeah.
Because that's how I roll, bitch.
Well, I mean, they wrote, and the recurring theme you see everywhere in either graffiti or shit is for the sweet or sweets to the
I
sweet.
noticed that.
And it's from William Shakespeare's Hamlet. A lot of people get the saying wrong. They say it's sweets for my sweet, like the song.
Sugar for my honey.
And that's not the quote. The quote is sweets for the sweet.
Sweets for the sweet.
And that's why there's
that's fucking easy for you to say.
That's why there's this reoccurring theme about it all the way through, because they wanted to reiterate that Candyman is there in ghost, in writing, in just reminding you can constantly be good or he'll get you.
Yeah, my mum used to tell me Santa Claus wouldn't come. Massive difference.
Yeah, I'd say bit of a difference there, yeah.
Massive difference. Do you know in my notes I've put his name, the Daniel Robitaille,
yeah.
Robitaille, but they never say it. They
No.
never say his name. It's like I said earlier, it's not until the second one, so I don't know why I wrote it in there for. But I did go. It's because I went and found out. Because I was like, has he got a name? If he's got a past, he's got a name. And I was like, have I missed something? Because it's me. Like I can miss quite a bit. But no, had to go and find that one out, and I've wrote it all in my notes. But yeah, Helen gets a good massive clock. That hit was brutal.
Yeah, it was massive.
Hits her right across the face with the end of his hook.
Hooky hook, yeah.
His hooky hook. Yeah, hits her with that, and she ends up in the hospital. And the police are very much on her side at this point, like very much on her side, like, oh my god, victim poor you, we'll find him, we'll get him, and they do. After a lineup viewing, that relationship soon very much changes.
Yes.
Poor Helen. I feel so sorry for her.
They are in the. This is the bit where she's in the, like they all this has happened. She's finally getting a bit better, and she walks back through the car park. Now this is 44 minutes in at this point where you're first introduced to Tony Todd, and in the car park where he's calling her name, and she turns around and she's like, "Do I know you?" And he walks to her, and there's this whole seductive, he sort of floats or glides towards her, that he has this effortless kind of movement about him, and it's not in the Doug Jones on a trolley being pulled like the gentleman kind of floating. It's just
the gentleman. Yeah.
It's kind of this just very regal way of moving. He has like this very
elegant.
Yeah, elegant. Yeah, that's the word I'm looking for. And then he sort of hypnotizes her from there. And then I'm right in saying she wakes up in the toilet.
She wakes up of the lady. So she met before, when her and Bernadette were walking around Caprini Green, they bumped into a woman who had a young son.
Yeah.
And they kind of got chatting with her. And when she wakes up from a hypnotic state, she is absolutely covered in blood in her bathroom. The woman is, hysterical. To be fair, I would have been exactly the fucking same. But my reaction would be, I'd be doing exactly the same to her as she's done to my fucking dog.
Honestly, that is the one that split second where you see the dog's head.
No. I'm like, have to remind myself, it's not real, it's not real, it's not real.
Every time. I think whoever did the special effects on that dog's head, chef's kiss to you, because you turn my stomach every time. It takes a lot for me to get a reaction after watching it. But dogs will always do it, and every time when I see that bit, I forget about it. I block it out of my memory, and I watch this film and I go, "Oh man,
not again!" Yeah. Well, where we have so
she the door down, and she's basically hanging over that lady with a meat cleaver.
She gets caught in the worst times, doesn't she? Like, my goodness.
Why is she waving a what bloody meat cleaver at this lady?
Well, because she loses her temper, doesn't she? Like, she's gone from, this woman has been completely hysterical, and I think she lashes out of her, and Helen loses her temper and goes to react, and as she's reacting, she's got a fucking meat cleaver in her hand, and the police kick the door in, and Helen is arrested for the first time. Awesome. And the police, the same policeman who she dealt with originally after her attack, is no longer playing Mr. Nice Cop with her anymore. No. What she's done is horrific. He almost feels like it's
baby.
It's personal. Yeah, the baby gets kidnapped. It's personal. So yeah, not on her side.
No.
But Helen's shitbag of a husband does come and get her out on bail later on. After he's had a late night.
Yeah, with one of his students. Let's not sugar the pill. He is the cliched professor banging his student, and that's how I feel like they met at the same time. I feel like
I don't think I think Helen might be walking around with rose tinted glasses on when it comes to that man, because he's done this before.
She even says to him though, she couldn't look me in the eye when she's walking out of the amphitheater thing, like the lecture room. She said she couldn't look me in the eye. What are you playing up? And he was like, "Oh, I can't help it if she loves my charisma. They're just," and he sort of plays it off, and she just goes, "Yeah, whatever." And it's just like,
he's like, he's like, I wouldn't. She's like, yeah, I know you wouldn't, but you know he would.
Yeah,
you are walking around with your head up your ass if you think that man is not banging everyone. Sorry, I really dislike her husband. So yeah, Helen gets bailed out and starts going through her photographs while she's at home.
Yeah.
Of what she took at Cabrini Green, and lo and behold, our other fella standing behind one of them.
Yeah. She's not seeing him in the background of the pictures.
Well, it's a good job she could, because I fucking couldn't. I was like, what am I meant to be looking at here? That is just a smudge. How does your eye directly go to that smudge? And then he comes into focus.
Yeah. And then he appears in the house, like where she is.
Well, Bernadette comes to the door and he's already in the house, and poor Bernie.
This is where he does the explanation before he kills Bernadette, isn't it? Where he says, I now have to spill the blood of the innocent so that people will remember me.
Mm-hmm.
They'll keep talking about me, because that's what keeps him
alive.
Or his ghost relevant. Because technically that's what he is. He's a ghost.
Well, yeah, and if people sorry, I've just remembered the ending when he said he's a ghost. But yeah, and the memory of him is the reason why he probably is more awoken, and obviously his story's being out there a bit. Just to go over his story, the friend of Shitbags, who Helen wants to annihilate with this amazing paper that she's doing, already knows about the legend of Candyman, and he tells it how he was a African-American man born in the late 1800s as a son of a slave who grew up to become a well-known painter. A detail that will come into play later. After he fell in love with and impregnated a white woman, her father sent a lynch mob after him. The mob cut off his right hand and smeared him with honeycomb stolen from wherever, attracting bees that stung him to death. His corpse was burnt in a pyre erected on the site where Cabrini Green homes were eventually built. And that's what Cabrini Green is doing throughout the film, is building the pyre. It's become a tradition. It's almost like, a bonfire night.
Yeah, it was 70 feet wide and 30 feet high by the time they finished building that.
I'm sure I've seen a bigger one in my field where I live. Kids are quite impressive there.
They used 1,500 gallons of propane as well on it.
They used my fucking wheelie bin when they did it before. 2
But
years in a row.
It was the guys that did the movie Backdraft.
Right.
That did this massive funeral part, not the funeral part, but the pyre at the end. So they were in good hands.
Kind of turns that way, doesn't it? So once Bernadette unfortunately gets the snip.
Yeah.
Quite literally. And again, unfortunate circumstances, Helen is lying on the floor with a knife in her hand while the police walk through the door.
Yeah.
Helen is not arrested. She's fucking committed.
Yes, by her husband as well.
Of course he did.
He backs up this choice, doesn't he?
Yeah. Come to fucking regret that later. But yeah, what a shitbag. I'm sorry, he's horrible. He's a horrible man, and I don't know. But at this point, you don't know he's had an affair. You know he's shifty, but you don't know he's having an affair. So you just think, oh, he's doing this for her own interest. Like, all he's seeing is what he's just walked in on. And fuck me, that was horrific. But he's doing it for his own means as well.
Oh, 100%. I mean, he gets her sectioned. She's then taken. The next scene you see is like Candyman's floating above her, taunting her. But when you see it on the camera's back, there's nothing there. So they think she's having visions. So they've put her on like some ridiculous drug, and she's been out for a month by the time she goes into the doctor's office. And the doctor turns around and says to her, like, you need to explain it a bit more. What happened? How did we get here? And she's literally like restrained to the wheelchair, so she can't move. And this is the scene where in the UK we got the uncensored version. And the Americas, the 1800s of it all. America got the censored version because obviously they wanted the lower rating.
So what's the censored and non-censored?
The censored version is that you don't see the kill at all. You just see.
Okay, that's the one I watched.
Screaming. Right now, I saw the UK version, which is where you see Candyman slit him from arse to neck.
I didn't. I heard it.
It's the same noises, but you actually see him do it. It flips back and forward to her face, but you see him do it, and you see the blood splat and the gore and the
right from
and we got that in the UK, which was really strange because usually we don't get
we are actually probably more sensitive than the Americans when it comes to stuff like that.
Yeah, we don't let our kids into the cinema to watch horror movies at 12. It just doesn't happen. You know, I still don't understand their movie system because at 12, could you imagine going to the cinema at 12 to watch Freddy? We would they would never let us in a cinema.
Well, I mean, I could because I'm fucking tall, and could pass for an older age. But I get what you mean. Would I want to do it though? That's the other thing. It's not a case of could I do it? It's would I want to? Do I really want to see Freddy Krueger in fucking, a big massive screen? I don't even want to watch him on my normal telly either. So
I mean, this film didn't do bad. It had a 9 million budget back in the day, which equates to about 20 million today. And it made 25.8 million at the box office, which equates to 57.8 million in today's money. Now, I will say, remember again, 1992, cinema was a luxury. It wasn't something you went to 3 or 4 times a week. You didn't get like
cinema passes or anything like that.
No, it was like a once in a blue moon trip to the cinema. So the fact that an indie horror movie, because it was to a degree indie, even though it wasn't indie budget, it was indie.
It has that
guerrilla
feel.
style shooting. It was very savage, like
How's that feel?
Yeah, the beauty of this movie was it actually got put up for the Saturn Awards as Best Picture, and it got beaten by Bram Stoker's Dracula that year. However,
what? Who said that?
Virginia Madsen still won Best Actress.
Fuck
that's Saturn Award for that. So
fuck yes, go on, Virginia/Helen. When Helen leaves, because Helen does leave her doctor's room via the window.
Yeah, shimmying on the side of the building. I'm like, no, love, no.
If that's me, I'm literally falling out and dead. It's over. We're done. Like, there's no way in God's earth I'm getting down there in one piece. No, it's not happening.
She pushes in through the window, doesn't she? She steals the nurse's uniform and tries to escape.
She goes all Sarah Connor for a second.
Oh yeah, she does a full-on like Mission Impossible escape, but then she gets out and she makes her way to the only place that she really knows, which is her home.
But it's not. Because some bitch who really likes pink has moved in. Oh, it was fucking horrible, wasn't it?
Abysmal pink as well. It wasn't just pink.
It looks like something you would drink.
Mr. Blobby. It was like Mr. Blobby had just exploded on the walls.
Just needed some yellow in there and it would have set that off right away. But yeah, Trevor, shitbag, is now let hit. He wrote Helen off the minute she got into that. He couldn't give two shits if she was saying or not. Because he moved his girlfriend into Helen's home. That looked quite nice. It looked like a grown-up home.
Yeah, white walls, may I add.
Yeah. And it looked very grown up and she had plants. Yes. And it looked lived in and it looked like education happens in there. Like it's something so grown up about it. And then that fucking pink wall.
And the pink sofas and chairs and
oh God.
I give it to the girl who played the mistress because the way she fell down when she saw her, I thought was pretty good. She genuinely looked like shit. She's gonna kill me. I'm going to die right now because she just fell, didn't she? Like the nerves.
Yeah. Stacey played that well. She earned that paycheck because she did do very, very well in that scene. Helen, do you know what this film really did to us though? While I was watching, made me think about smoking again. Not that I ever would pick a cigarette up. I actually cannot stand the smell of cigarettes.
There was so much smoking in this film.
So much smoking. I was like, if it was back in the day when I used to smoke, I would literally be chaining it every time because it's so built in there. When you see someone do it, it's so, you think of this like social thing and it's just, you instantly go to pick one up.
Yeah.
But, that's all I kept thinking of. I was like, oh my God, if I was smoking right now, this room just would be fucking, you wouldn't be able to see anything.
Yeah. Yeah. she sort of they go to try and call 911. She's like, don't do it, just give me enough time to leave and you two
get
have
your
your happy existence. Because I think what they were trying to show was she had nothing left. They were trying to get her to that point of despair where she'd do anything.
Yeah.
So she goes back to the one place that she knows, which is back to Cabrini Green, and makes her way through the mirror.
It's almost like she's drawn there. It's
Yeah, I
almost
think
like
it's more so that. I think it's got a
she's
lot
like that. Well, you are right. She literally, up until the point she walks through that door and realizes her whole life is gone, she has nothing else. So the only place that she has probably had any connection to within the last 6 months is being Cabrini Green. So it's like, of course, that's where she's going to go. It's not out of the norm for her not to go there.
But then she realizes that baby Anthony, who's been missing, like they think she killed him. That's what they were convinced that happened. She killed the baby, but really Candyman put him aside because he was gonna. Now this is the bit that I get confused at every time, because I'm not sure if he was going to transfer his soul into the baby, or he was going to sacrifice the baby, or the baby was just used as a means to get Helen there. I still don't actually know what the point, what that
I don't know
bit
if it was. I don't know if it's kind of what I'm reading from my notes is almost like he's luring her with the baby.
Yeah, that makes
So
more sense, because
he
when he
hasn't.
puts the baby in the fire, it makes sense for her to go in there because he wants her to die.
Exactly. So it's almost like he's using the baby as like a, you will do, if you're the kind of person I think you are, you're going to come after him.
Yeah.
And yeah, she does. But before she does all that, she does bump into Candyman again.
Yeah.
And we get one of the most iconic and famous scenes that this movie franchise has to offer. And it is the rib cage full of bees. And
Bees.
lots of bees and the
Not
mouth.
Nicolas Cage full of bees, because that's another film, but this is the rib cage full of bees.
I can't believe I actually watched that one first before the original. What is wrong
Bees!
with me? Is it the bees or the bees?
It's the bees. Yeah, it's
So yeah, bees are pouring out. That would be impressive.
that
That's
would
a
be a
whole
whole other
different
film.
it's a whole different fucking film. But bees are pouring out of his mouth, which actually in turn go onto Helen's face.
Oh yeah.
And you can see, I don't know if it's a case of that is what it almost looks like a photograph. It doesn't look like that is Helen lying there because of how still she is.
Well, supposedly on one of the very many sites I went on to do some of this, you try and fact check, but on 3 of them you're told yes, on 2 of them you're told something different. So
yeah,
on one of on some of the sites it basically said that she was deathly allergic to bees. So they assured her that because these bees were 12 hours old, that their stings their stings weren't at full potency. So if anything, she would just get a little bit of anaphylaxia, and that would be it. So she
stab you with an EpiPen. Good to go.
she was absolutely petrified. So
Also,
I don't know
it's
whether
bees.
I don't know whether they actually transferred her out for that bit though, because she seems so
it's too calm. It's too still. It doesn't look. It's not out of place in any stretch because that of what's going on with Tony Todd.
Yeah.
But when he goes in to kiss her with a mouth full of bees.
Well, apparently it's a very similar thing to what Doug Jones had when he had the moths in his mouth, because it's around about the same time. They put in the dental dam. So it's like if anybody doesn't know what dental dam is, it's like a piece of rubberized, I don't even know really what it's made of. It's like a piece of rubber silicone which they attach from the back of the teeth to.
It's like one of them, but very big.
Kind of, yeah.
Yeah.
And
it's my anxiety
going down his throat. It stops the bees from going down his throat. Same with the moths. So it kept it in a
a contained space.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is my anxiety octopus that has the audio listeners won't be able to hear it, but if you ever see us, that's all I'm doing is fiddling with this. It's not even anxiety, it's just fucking fiddly fingers. That's all.
But he goes and he gives her a massive kiss. with a mouth.
Oh yeah, mouth wide open.
And it's like, I think then you realize, like, she knows that there's nothing else left. She manages to get out of there because she stabs him with the hook, doesn't she? Or something happens between the two of them, and she manages to get out.
No,
But
he
then
vanishes. He literally just vanishes after he kisses her, and she then, because I
wakes
think
up, freaked out.
yeah, she gets up and then she takes Anthony, and as she starts to leave the room, she sees the Muriel.
You are awful, Muriel.
Fuck! Mural of Candyman and his wife.
Yeah,
And
and it
who
says
does
on
his
it,
wife look like?
Helen. It says it was always Helen or something on the they've written
Yeah.
on across the mural thing.
Yeah. He does promise that he would release Anthony.
Yeah.
But
He wanted
obviously he
to
wants one, he wants to lure her, and two, he wants to fucking terrify Caprini Green. Like, they've been doing this fucking pyre to like burn out the ghost of Candyman. Like, he's a bit pissed with Caprini Green as well. But what we find is that he's put Anthony in the middle of the pyre.
Yeah.
And Helen dramatically goes in. I am honestly, when that scene is on and she's in there trying to get out, I am like moving around with her, because that is filmed inside of it. There's no if, buts, or maybes. She's fucking in there.
Yeah.
And it looks so uncomfortable.
Yeah.
She's also carrying a baby with her, and it's like, oh my gosh. But then the kid who she saw earlier comes out with all of his mates, and all the Caprini Green come out and fucking set it on fire.
Because of what he sees, because she convinces little Jake that it's not real, and he sees a hook going into the middle of the funeral pyre. Now, bearing in mind, what he doesn't know is that it's Helen attached to the hook, because she was using it because it was in the room after Candyman disappeared. So he thought it was Candyman, and he knew he had to burn him out. So technically it was the little boy's fault that the place was set on fire, because they were trying to get rid of him.
Yeah. They're so scared of this myth.
Yeah.
That look at what they've built to erase this ghost, because it's all it up for them. That's all he is. Like, he's not. They're not living Helen's life and seeing what she's seeing. But yeah, Helen has this. Oh, this is how Daenerys Targaryen should have looked at the end of season 1 of Game of Thrones, as she comes out of there, hair burnt off, skin burning. She passes that baby to that mother's, to the mother. Fuck's sake, Sam.
Yeah.
But yeah, that is how Daenerys Targaryen should have looked.
No.
Because her hair isn't fucking dragon fucking fireproof.
Apparently it is, though. Years of interbreeding has led to fireproof hair.
Lead hair.
But oh god. Yeah, and then she comes out, and obviously they try and all put her out, and she's too far gone, and she's carked it. But they don't even go to the fucking expense or even the courtesy of putting a wig on her when they bury her. They just bury her with her burnt weird. And I've got to say, that let it down for me.
Doesn't she have like flowers around her hair or something? Because she is very. Do you know what I loved about this? The funeral makeup. Everything's peach.
Yes, but it was the special effects work on her head that to me was very strange. It looked like her hair, because obviously she had beautiful curly hair, like ringlet, like I don't know what you call that hairdo, but she had that. And it looked like the burn patterns were like circular in her hair. It was very strange. And every time I see it, I focus on that and I don't look at anything else. You know, I'm just
like, it's a choice. But when she's in the coffin, she looks beautiful because she's incredibly pale. But what I found with funeral makeup is they do like to use a lot of peach. I will never, I know this is very, very morbid talk, but I will never forget how my grandmother looked in the coffin. She was like she looked like a fucking peach. She had a peach gown on. It was fucking horrific. and she had this horrible. I never saw my grandmother in makeup. My grandmother was a traditional, Northeast grandmother who wore fucking cardis from the age of like 20 or something. And she never had I never saw her in makeup, and she had this. Oh, it was horrible. She just didn't look fucking right at all. But it's all I remember. If I think of it's not now. Makeup is so changed in funeral makeup, but back in the day, peach was the color of choice.
Yeah.
And she looked so peachy.
Yeah, I mean, and then what you do is you don't see her in an open casket. You actually see her in the casket in the ground, but then it sort of fades up to the funeral up above, and how it's only her husband, his mistress, the professor guy, and that's it, is it?
That's
and
the
priest.
Yeah, Helen's probably lost her whole entire life and everyone that she knew due to her actions, because nobody, and this is evident in the next movie, nobody puts the story straight. They just are under the impression that she's a murderess. But the people of Caprini Green know.
Yep.
They know, because they come down and they show their respects, and how they walk down that field.
Yeah.
I nearly burst into tears. I'm not going to lie. It was so powerful.
Because she gave her baby back. And
she sacrificed herself.
Yeah, exactly. And no one had done that for them. They don't feel like they've had anybody do that for them. So when Jake chucks the hook in, I'm always like, are you saying to her it's okay for her to get her revenge now? So she takes the hook.
I feel like that is the case, because that's how I took it anyway. Yeah. And I think 2021 erases Helen. So we'll get into that in a minute. Not in that sense, but because let's get the end of it.
Yeah.
So Trevor is grief-stricken.
Yes.
To
the point of where he's reliving his life with Helen, and then he's looking at the reality with this new one, and how she is just sulking, throwing things around in the kitchen because he won't come out of the bathroom, whereas Helen had all the food cooked. She was so ready to see him. When he came in the door, she gave him a big hug, and this one was all very like,
what was she doing with them steaks? She cut them in the squares. She cut them in the squares? What's she making?
I don't think she's ever cooked a day in her life, the girl that played her, because it was just the way she threw. I mean, them steaks didn't even look like steaks. I don't even know what the hell that was. That had been beat within an inch of its life. It was like,
it was so thin. It was like, you remember then the very cheap steak you used to get from Asda that was chewy as fuck. like you're skint. You're like, I'm really skint, but we're gonna do fancy dining. So he's regretting life choices, sitting on the toilet, and he goes to look in the mirror, as you do in this movie, and lo and behold, who was behind the mirror?
But he did say Helen 5 times.
He did.
Helen, and then he realized what he said, and he looked up and he goes, "Oh, Helen," and then Helen's there.
Helen is here.
No bees though.
No bees. Looking ever so beautiful. That, I mean, regardless of the hair situation, that face is just, it's fucking stunning. And Helen's come back to seek her revenge. Kinda. Has she? Don't know. Not really explained.
Yeah.
If Helen has joined the ranks of the Hive, as it is fucking known in 2021. I'm getting angry with myself, because it really annoys us in the 2021 one.
There's a lot that annoys me in the 2021 one. But given different reasons,
but given some of the context of the movie, I feel like my anger's not warranted. Yeah. And I will explain myself, because I don't want to leave it to what I'll explain.
Yeah.
The 2021 one was written by Jordan Peele.
Yep.
I've come to enjoy Jordan's work. I think he's made some bold and brave choices. I genuinely think this is one of them.
For a comedian, the guy knows how to write a good horror / sci-fi / mystery movie. I mean,
you can tell where his passion lies. I know comedy is his thing, but his passion is horror, and it is very evident with what's the one called?
You got Get Out, No,
Get Out.
Yeah, there's loads.
What's the Get Out? Which one's that one?
Get Out's the one where the guy gets hypnotized.
That is
Us is the one where the people get replaced with people from.
That's got some questions behind it. Not a bad film, but the whole cloning aspect really, like, there's a lot of questions there. Get Out is some of the best writing. The intensity of that movie was unreal. We watched that the same night we watched Hereditary, so we were on fucking edge to start with. But at the end, where he thinks it's all over, that's it. The police are here.
Yeah,
I'm done for. I'm a black man in a white man's community. I'm fucked, and it's his fucking friend.
Yeah,
and I have never cheered so much in my life. Jordan Peele he gets it, and he is also a huge horror fan, so he gets horror. It's not bad writing, this movie, by any stretch.
no,
but there is some questionable things that have like got me bugged.
This is, in my opinion, and it's worth nothing, in my opinion. I'm not somebody who is studied for years to give my opinion. This is just an unsolicited opinion because I'm on podcast.
Same here.
I feel like there was a difference of intention between Jordan Peele's writing and DaCosta's directing of this movie. I think the way she read the treatment, the way she read the script was from a very socioeconomic of the times, with the BLM movement and everything that was going on. She read it with that in mind. Whereas all the movies Jordan's written have been people of color heavy because that's his intention, but it's never been so divisive that it's kind of hard for me to explain it without it sounding really bad, because it's Get Out is its own thing. It is a very strange idea, and that, whilst I know it explores the ideals of racism, it's not specifically just about that. It's more about the fact that they're able to hypnotize the souls of these people and put them in other people. Strange.
For all Jordan has a message, the story can kind of like the message is so subtle. It's a subtle message within a movie of he's writing a story.
Yeah, it's the story. It's not the essential justice of it all. There is a key point to the story, whilst that's all going on in the background and you're aware of it, it's not the main focus. Whereas I feel like DaCosta, when she directed it, it was her intention to make this the main focus, to make it very uncomfortable for anybody to watch that can't empathize, and if that was her intention, well done, because it worked. I don't like this movie, and it's not for those reasons. I don't like this movie because I don't feel it gives any proper cute. It's like it doesn't give you the same ability to get creeped out. Candyman is totally different in this film. He's not the same Candyman we know.
He's fucking Sherman.
It's so weird, like how they targeted this whole thing.
They've made Candyman into it's an ability. It's not something that is in urban legend. It's an ability that's being passed on because of what's being done. It's not myth. It's not spooky.
Yeah,
it's something that. So Sherman is a man who lives in Cabrini Green, who is a candy man. He gives candy to the local children. He's a bit of an oddball.
See, this to me sold off Predator vibes. Like, it didn't
100%, given that he's going,
It was like, this was the bit where it lost me straight away. Like when it went into the scene of the little boy down in the laundry room with the hole in the wall and the guy coming out dressed as Candyman throwing candy on the floor, and I'm like, this isn't Candyman. This is a sexual predator looking for
This
children.
is a fucking peddler just walked out of a fucking hole in a wall with a hook for a hand.
And that's where they lost me, because straight away you're taking away the thing about the movie that Tony,
with the myth, the fantasy, the what's the word I'm looking for? It's like a mythos about him.
Yeah, Tony works so hard to create this character, this guy who, if we're using the allegory of color in movies, Tony did so much work to establish his character, to give him a background. He came up with that. Tony came up with the background of being lynched and all, honey and all that sort of thing. That was Tony's story. So you're discounting an entire, the very reason this film was being made was off the back of that movie. If you didn't have the first one, they wouldn't have remade this one or sequeled it or whatever we're calling it. Yeah. So to take the premise of someone either pretending to be the Candyman based on a predator that lives in a hole in a wall in a laundry, I was like, what the fuck is this? Straight away, gone. I was like, out of it.
Yeah. I'm going to end up hating this movie by the end of me talking about this. I know I am. What was I going to say? I was going to say something. Yeah, so Sherman with these sweets, and some sweets. The kid screams because obviously a man has just walked out of a fucking wall offering sweets, and Sherman, instead of a hook for a hand, has a genuine hook for a hand. What you would class as a part of a appendage that would be used in replacement before we had the advancements in,
prosthetics.
That's the word I'm looking for. Thank you. And he screams to where the police, because the police are looking for someone, so they're on the grounds. They don't just show up because the kid screams and it's like, I'm coming, kid. They're already there. And as they come in and see Sherman, who looks incredibly confused and startled, they're just shooting down.
So I'm guessing that he technically isn't. He's going off the back of the mythos of Candyman then, this Sherman, because
because he's killed out of revenge. No, he's not. Sorry, not revenge. Sherman is mowed down in injustice. Right. And that's what they're basing their whole Candyman thing off. So if someone is being killed for that kind of reason, they have every right to come back as a Candyman figure.
So I'm right in saying
this is how I interpret it.
Right. So I'm right in saying that Daniel got completely discounted as the original Candyman then, and Sherman becomes no, because of all the things that happen later. But
a hive. There's a hive. There fucking is. And this is what annoyed me, because at the end of the movie, sorry to skip right to the end, but at the end of the movie, you've got that beautiful silhouette that they showed you when they reenacted the Daniel story, because Daniel's story does get mentioned in it, and it is part of
it was the puppet show, wasn't it?
Like this beautiful silhouette thing, and they show you the rest of the Candymen, but not Helen. Helen should, if there's a fucking hive of Candymen, then Helen is part of that fucking hive.
But there isn't, though.
No, there's not. But that's, if we're going off what they have put down. I'm looking at my phone because I did actually write some notes on my phone while I was watching it. Helen's, where was it? Yeah, the Candyman hive is created. What does that mean for Helen? Well, where's Helen in this whole fucking hive bullshit? And also, go on.
No, I was going to say the one thing I did like, very few, but was the very beginning of this film where it goes into the intro and how they're all flipped for mirror. So you're looking at a reflection, which I thought was very, very clever. at the beginning. So you get your Universal trailer bit, all of it quite fun. So it was that I did like, because I thought that was pretty good idea.
Yeah. Well, are we not meant to know that Anthony is Anthony from the first one? Because I instantly knew that the minute he came on telly.
Well, this is the thing that right. On the page, I asked today about what people thought this movie was. Now, I didn't offer the sequel option because I'd seen an interview with John Peel, and he said it wasn't a sequel. He didn't want it to be deemed as a sequel. So I didn't offer that as an option. I offered it as a reboot, a remake, or something else. And someone put the point in that it is a sequel, and I was like, well, not according to Jordan. And they were like, but clearly it is because of Anthony. And I was like, well, for me it feels like they've changed the law, so how can it be a sequel if it's not directly
following the law of the first one?
Yeah, it feels like this one is a bit disjointed in the law. It doesn't feel like it's...
Oh, it sounds like they're making it up as they're going along, to be honest, the way that it is, because if they're going to use Anthony, then use Daniel.
Yes.
Don't use someone else, because all you've done there is just added another piece to a puzzle that didn't need to be there.
Sherman didn't need to be there. Sherman threw me completely.
There is so many people in this movie who don't need to be there. The guy who explains shit to him out of nowhere, he doesn't even fucking ask
dry cleaners.
He just tells them. Like, he didn't even ask
cleaner.
Yeah, but he didn't even tell her. He wasn't talking about anything. Anthony wasn't saying anything. He just starts talking to him and telling him, and he fucking enrolls himself into Anthony's life. Anthony is a painter.
Yeah.
How
Anthony's a painter who just happens to get bitten or stung by a bee.
Yeah, but I mean, this is after the fact that he's starting to learn. In the beginning, Anthony learns about Caprini Green. He learns about that. He learns about Helen. Helen's legacy is and it's told exactly how it happened in the first movie, but it's the assumption that Helen did what she
knew what she was doing.
That we were meant to believe that Helen did what she did, as in the murders. We know as viewers that's not what Helen did, but that's how Helen's legacy, and that's fine, totally fine, because that's how people would remember her. But to discard her as part of a fucking hive is ridiculous. She came back at the end. She had to have her name said 5 times in order to come back. She had the exact same revenge in her heart as Candyman did. And I would like to think it would have been nice to see them both standing together at the end.
Yeah.
But that's just personal choice. So yeah, he's finding out about this. He doesn't know about his life, even though, come on. And he starts getting really connected to the Candyman story, and his artwork starts to reflect it. It starts out really shit, and by the middle of the film, he's got some good shit going down. He's got some dark shit going down.
So then he gets his art exhibition at his girlfriend's gallery, or whatever the hell's happening there. And it's this really poncy art gallery that you're like, oh, fuck the shit. And you can tell he feels really out of place there, but he's put this installation in, which was the mirror, wasn't it? That was his.
Yeah, so you could you've got your pictures behind it, the mirror there, and he explains how it's the looking up in, on, around. I come from an arty family. Dad's an artist. My sister's an art curator. My mom appreciates it. She appreciates it. I can't think of anything fucking worse than being in a moment like that in that art gallery. They are not my people. They are far too fucking pretentious for my liking.
And you can tell he feels that way. We're talking to equate it to something. You're talking like Tracy Emin with her unmade bed and getting some sort of Turner Prize for it. It was just a mirror, I can see the beauty in a lot of things, but you cannot persuade me that a person who ain't made their bed is worthy of a Turner Prize. I'm sorry. It's
Well, if that was the case, Anthony would win every fucking day.
So for me, I'm sure there's people out there that will disagree with me and say it was a genius move. I mean, if she was doing it to take the piss, well, I congratulate her greatly because it worked. But yeah, this place makes you feel uncomfortable straight away, which I think was a clever stroke because it didn't. The whole vibe of the place was weird. It was just very uncomfortable. You could tell a lot of the people there were Klingons and they were only there because they were trying to get seen and all that sort of
Because it's a fucking art show and it'll be free alcohol. That's why. I've been to fucking plenty of them, and that's all they do is dish out free. I've been to a lot of my sister's openings, and that's all they do is just fucking sit there.
So you're spending $2.5, $3 on a painting you don't need because you're drunk.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's what they do. Fly you with alcohol and like, buy this shit. I shouldn't mock it. My sister does this for a fucking living. Like, I shouldn't mock it, but it's not my scene. I'm not into the art style like my sister. Photography is a very different matter for me though. But the art bit, no.
So this is the bit where the two people that are left to tidy up look in the mirror and do the Candyman, isn't it?
No.
Is this not that bit?
It's the owner of the gallery who works with Anthony's girlfriend, who Anthony told was a little bitch, and he's like, and his girlfriend's like, oh, I'm really sorry. And he's like, don't worry, I can handle being called a bitch. Fuck off.
Yeah.
You'd fucking hate a tongue lashing off me then if you can handle that one. But yeah, so they go upstairs and they're getting it on, and she starts saying Candyman 5 times while they're getting it on, and it's instant. He's there, right in the gut, right in the back. Fucking slashy slosh. Loved it. You get to see the kills. I got to see the kills in this one anyway. in this version. So yeah, them two get the chop. Again, Sherman. Why? It makes no sense. It made sense when they were coming after in the first one because it was whenever it would happen, Helen was doing it.
Yeah.
Or someone, do you know what I mean? It just, there's no they have no connection to the Candyman thing. So it just makes, I don't get it. I don't get it.
Unless Tony, well, he didn't. I was just going to say unless Tony said no, but he clearly didn't because at the end.
No, he didn't because his fucking face is there right at the end. Oh my God. So yeah, so them two get the chop, and Tony then gets stung by the bee, which then ends up taking up his whole fucking body. And while that's going on, he finds out about him and his girlfriend aren't going through the best of time, and they end up kind of departing ways for a bit. Her brother sounded like Billy Porter. Generally thought it was Billy Porter to start with. So yeah, them two are not having the bestest of times. And what happens with oh yeah, Anthony then gets the full story of Daniel's story.
Yeah.
Not Sherman. Daniel's story.
So let's just mix it up a bit more for no reason.
Yeah. So yeah, and then it all becomes apparent to him. Oh, that's it. That's it. So he finds out about Daniel. He's got the bee sting. It starts to affect his body. He goes to hospital and like, oh, welcome back, Anthony. And he's like, what do you mean? And he's like, well, you were born here. No, I wasn't. I was born on the south side. Wrong. You were born here. And you lived in
Cabrini Green.
Thank you. I give up now. My words won't come out properly. It's that time. So yeah, he goes through his mother, who's the same actress, by the way, who played
Vanessa Williams.
Yeah, fucking fantastic. She explains, yeah, you were kidnapped as a kid, and the scar on your shoulder is from where he got you with his fucking hook.
Yeah,
and he doesn't take
no
that
mention of Helen saving him though, is there?
No mention of Helen making a fucking sacrifice. Well, they do mention Helen, but it's not in regards to the sacrifice. It's just Helen's story. It's like she confirms Helen's story is real, but not to that.
I have to be honest, right? I have seen this at least 2 or 3 times, this film, prior to me rewatching it on Tuesday. Now, bearing in mind, I've been working back to back now I'm on my 3rd week without a day off. I fell asleep here. And it takes a lot for me to fall asleep. I just lost all interest.
Yeah.
And I hate to say it because I don't do that. I stay, if I'm going to watch a film, I'll watch it. And I
Not
just
me.
struggled. I couldn't. I woke up and I thought to myself, I'm not even going to rewind it because I don't. There's a lot that goes on in this film. You see him alienating his girlfriend, you see him alienating his friends, you see him going out on his own. The thing I do like about it, another thing I do like, I'll go on the positive here, is the fact that in the original, you only saw Candyman through the mirror to bring him to life. In this one, he's in every reflective surface.
Yeah.
You see his reflection on on the fridge wall if it's a bit shiny, and you see it in the windows of the kitchen cabinets. He's everywhere.
Yeah.
And I think I like that concept, to know that he's always with him, but he doesn't know he's always with him yet. So that's kind of creepy in that sense. I think that was a kind of creepy thought, that he's always just in the peripheral, he's always just in the background waiting.
I've just read a contradiction. When he goes to see his mom admits that Candyman was responsible for the bloodshed that was blamed on Helen, and the residents no longer speak his name. Well, that's full of shit. Unless that's what she believes, but that is not what's happening, because obviously
she moved, didn't she, to the
fucking
other side.
Sherman's about.
Yeah.
So
watch out, Sherman's about it.
with his candy and he's gonna get you.
I think for me, if you're going to do a direct sequel,
just do it.
Do a direct sequel, use the previous lore, make it very simple for people. You don't have to not put in the social aspect of it. This isn't a commentary again on any of the social injustices in this movie at all. This is a comment on, you're trying to do a direct sequel from a movie that came out in 1992 in 2021. Whilst I agree there's a lot of issues that can be paralleled, because I'm not sure that anything really has got any better in America. I don't know. I'm not, I'm not from there. But all I see is the fact that they've discounted Tony Todd and his entire legacy.
Yeah.
And the movie has gone from being a romanticized revenge movie to just being this politically driven revenge movie, but it's not a revenge movie. I don't know how to describe.
You're using revenge for revenge's sake. Yeah. Whereas you could have used Daniel as oh my God, we haven't spoke about him for so long. When the word, it's starting to come out, the stories, the urban legends starting to pick back up again, the ghost is starting to appear. Yeah. You don't need to create this, and I'm going to say the word again, hive of Candymen. No. It doesn't need to be. It could have been done so much better, and this is where there's a lot of questions for me. So Anthony starts to get a bit fucking weird with the whole bee stings, and starts to go very quiet and into himself. And he actually, William, the guy who likes to tell him a lot of things even though he never asked, abducts his girlfriend with Anthony with him, who is kind of in a comatose state.
Yeah.
He is the kid who screamed when Sherman came out. He is the reason that Sherman was shot.
Yeah.
Not that I would ever blame that on a child. It's just his scream led to the action that took place.
That was a social commentary right there, because the police were white.
Yeah.
And Sherman wasn't, so.
But he also witnessed it again with his sister, who did. Yeah. So yeah, he's been through a lot of Candyman-isms to really piss him off. So what he attempts to do is to recreate it. He cuts Anthony's hand off, replaced it with a hook.
He sort of convinces him it's the right thing to do, doesn't he?
He's fucked off his tits, man. He's not even there.
He's like, we've got to do this. It's, you know, we need to do this. And I'm like, but why?
But why? I'd be saying, you're not fucking touching my hand with a meat cleaver.
What's the purpose of him doing this to Anthony?
To entice
Sherman?
No, to entice the police. I don't know. This is what I don't because I understand he's recreating the Candyman myth. He's recreating the Candyman story or Daniel's story, and then his girlfriend to get the police, and then the police would kill Daniel. No, the police would kill Anthony, and he would become the Candyman. For what purpose? I generally don't fucking know.
Because they don't. Cabrini Green at this point has been gentrified.
Yeah, it doesn't really exist as it was.
No, in 2011, the real Cabrini Green, which you see in the first one, was completely leveled, and all the people were moved out and dispersed around the country and in other parts of Chicago. Now, what in its place is a Target, and a Dick's Sporting Goods, both on the site of Cabrini Green. So, I mean, it's one of those things where there's no purpose. I might have missed it completely, but I have watched this 4 times.
I've just read it. It's just another vengeful spirit to join the hive.
Oh, get
the fucking hive again. Oh, and so Anthony collapses in his girlfriend's arm after fucking his girlfriend takes out William, and the police come and shoot Anthony. The police then take her into custody and try to convince her to tell them that Anthony did it and it was a lawful shooting. She then says, "Can I see myself in the mirror?" And he's like, "No, you fucking can't." And she's like, "I'll tell you whatever you want to hear if you let me look in the mirror." And she calls upon Candyman. And I genuinely do like this ending, but not for how it's just led to. I just like this part for some reason. I like the fact that
Candyman, or does she say Anthony?
She says Candyman.
Right, okay.
She says Candyman 5 times, and you just see this whole scene of policemen being thrown everywhere. We can't see who's doing it, but then he lets her out of the car to where she then stands in front of him, and it's not Anthony anymore.
No,
it's Daniel standing in front of her saying, "Tell my story."
But that's the weird thing. It's behind the gate, isn't he? And she's in front of the gate, and he's behind like this gate or this fence post, and you see him, like his shadow come around the corner, and you see the iconic coat and everything. You're thinking, right, okay. And then you see it's Sherman, and then as he gets closer and you get square on, you see
no, you see it's Anthony. You see it's Anthony, and then
Anthony, sorry, and then and then you see the square on face, and it switches, which I think is always a clever when they do that. It switches to Tony, and Tony then says, "You know, you have to tell my story." Daniel says, "You have to tell my story." She had no fucking story, as far as I'm aware.
She didn't fucking believe it.
So. And then, like, he walks off and she's just stood there. And I'm like, so she's going to get blamed for all this nonsense now. Same boat that Helen was in, because she's the only one left standing. There's dead policemen everywhere. And
left her in an awkward position.
So technically, it's starting the cycle again. I mean, from that point of view, it is consistent with the first one, if that is genuinely their intention with how they left it. But I don't know.
I had to write this down. The film's end credits features a shadow puppet montage of members of the growing Candyman hive, including Daniel, Sherman, Anthony, James Bird Jr., George Stinney, and Anthony himself.
No.
Where the fuck is Helen?
Maybe she was only a vengeful spirit just to kill her husband, and once she'd done her business, she didn't kill anybody else.
Get fucked. No.
You know, I can only think that there's some possibility that was the answer. But this film, for me, I still am struggling with the fact it cost 25 million to make this film. There's hardly any practical effects in it at all. The majority of it is CG. And it made at the cinema. Now, bear in mind, 2021, we are all starved for entertainment. We are chomping at the bit because we've been locked out of cinemas for the best part of a year. And you don't do what I did, which was when the minute they opened the cinema, what did I go and watch in the cinema? Wonder Woman 84. Oh, the disappointment.
Why?
Oh, the disappointment.
Why?
But I was so desperate to get into a cinema because it had been so long, you know, and I was like, yes, Wonder Woman's gonna be great. Oh, what the hell is this? But yeah, it was 2021. We're a year into, like, out of lockdown. No, we're coming out of a year of lockdown now. We're thinking to ourselves, right, okay, we get back into cinema. It took 77.4 million. 77.4 million. This movie.
I mean, I didn't go and see it.
I didn't go and see it, and it's not for any reason other than you take something that I love, you got to do a damn good job at explaining your purpose behind either rebooting it, sequeling it, requeling it, whatever we're doing here, because the majority of the people on the page said it was one of two things. It was either a requel because they were discounting the second two that had been made, so it was a requel, or it was an adjacent sequel because it didn't have the majority of the lore that we came to know from the first one. So technically, it's got all the ingredients of being a sequel. It's just missing key parts. So
I think I know. I think I've just realized why I initially liked this film, because I did initially like this film. It's because it made me understand the first one. It's just literally just hit us there. It's not that I didn't understand it. It's not. I was so much more clear with how not only I felt about it, the story behind it, understanding the decisions people were like making. So that helped. This film helped me do that. I've just read here, and this is the last time I bring it up, I promise. Fully introduces the Candyman mythology of a hive of various Candymen killers. Daniel, the original. Helen, the only female. She's not mentioned in that last bit. The film's murderer, Candyman Sherman Fields. The Candyman in the making, Anthony, whose journey into becoming Candyman is similar to Helen's, with an obsessive exploration into the legend of Candyman, subsequent wrong accusal, a left-behind romantic partner, and murdered colleagues. Okay, then give me that story. Then, because what you gave was, why Sherman? I think if you take Sherman out of it, it makes things less complicated. You don't need to overcomplicate things with
if you take the hive, the whole idea of the hive and Sherman out of the whole thing, and you replace it with Daniel and the lore of Daniel, this film would have made sense to me. For what it is, you know, not for the social commentary, because I will never understand that, but from the point of view of a storyline that's driven off the back of a very, very well established movie, and you're supposed to be picking it up all these years later to be able to 19 years later to be able to run with it, to make it cohesive, to make it understandable. And I feel like that is then where Jordan's vision and DaCosta's vision didn't meet, because I think Jordan's such a horror fan. When he was interviewed in one of the interviews I saw, he said that the first time he ever went to see Candyman, he's a year older than me, so he would have been about 13, and he said the thing about that movie was we didn't have obviously any black icons in horror, and he said it was like I was watching and I could identify with him because I loved horror and this was this guy in horror, and he said we finally had somebody, so I wanted to be able to tell this guy's tale. And I'm like, you say that, but where the fuck did you tell it in this movie?
You called Sherman.
Clive wasn't brought on for this one at all, if I remember rightly, because Clive's
not seen his name anywhere.
Clive's not been very well for a very long time. Clive can't travel. He lives in America, and he did get accused again, like I say earlier, of the whole use of urban legend and the racism question. And to this day, his answer is, I'm in a biracial relationship. His husband is black. He's like, I don't understand why people keep thinking that there's this
I've just learned something new.
because that was never his intention when he wrote it. It was
I
never.
didn't know he was gay.
Yeah, he's, you know, it does explain a lot when you look at Hellraiser and you look at the Books of Blood and stuff, and you're like,
Oh yeah,
yes. And then
okay.
the whole situation was a big thing for him when he went to uni and college with Doug Bradley, because they were together when they
That
went to
makes sense.
uni together. But yeah, it's there's just
Yeah.
so much to it that, again, like I say, it's not the racism aspect of the second one and the social themes of the second one are not what I hate about the movie.
No,
They are not. I want to
German.
be honest with you, because that, like I say, because I can't identify or understand or empathize with it, I can't wholeheartedly give myself to this film to be able to understand the main characters and be empathetic with them, because I
And I
can't
understand that.
I can't ever say that I'm going to be in a situation like that. I've never, again, I'm afforded privileges that others aren't. And so I feel like this movie had the ability to be able to honor a movie that meant so much to so many little kids that needed that horror icon, that needed that person that they
representation. Representation. It fucking matters.
And I don't feel like this one had that same effect that it would have done for the kids, whether intention was there or not for that to be, you know. But it makes me sad because I don't think Jordan intended.
No, I don't think he did. And I just feel like they overcomplicated it with the Sherman story. That did stick with Daniel. Daniel was he got obsessed with the story because of Helen. It starts with Helen. That's how he finds out about it. Then keep with Helen to how Helen had her obsession. If you're going to align their lives together, then make it as to why Helen was obsessed. It was because of the area. It was because of the myth and the legend that comes with this name. Don't add another person in there to try and create a group.
No.
We don't need a group. The idea of Candyman is an individual soul. Not.
I can poke a hole in the end of the last one, because you do see Candyman's body burning, but he's supposed to be a ghost.
That's what I meant. That's what I mentioned earlier. I said something earlier about it. I was meant to come back to it. Yes. Yeah.
I mean, I can only assume.
But do you know what? I think in the writing, it's the only way she could ever defeat him.
I think it's got to be that he was real when she was there.
Okay. I just thought they ripped themselves into a hole and was like, fuck, how's she going to get out of this with him chasing her, and set him on fire? Just do it. Set him on fire.
I feel like that because his love for her was so strong and that was what was driving him.
Yeah.
The ability that when she was around, he was whole again. He was real. He felt like that's the only explanation I have.
We're going to go with that one. No, we're going to go with that one, because otherwise I was just thinking, for all this movie is written beautifully, that ending, you've wrote yourself into a bit of a hole there. But that would fit with where like within
love
that film
side of it, yeah.
Absolutely.
I mean, I could be completely wrong, and I'm sure someone will tell me I'm
Michael.
wrong. I can tell you now that Manny will, Mike will. But like, anybody, please explain what your thoughts are.
Yeah.
You know, be constructive. I am open to people telling me my thoughts on this are completely wrong. I'm open for a discussion about it. Honestly, I am. This second movie, again, like, just completely threw me. I don't know how to feel about it. I don't know if it's meant for me.
I've just laid it out to where I now understand what I feel about it.
Yeah.
There's aspects of it that I like and that I think that could work within a difference. Just removing some pieces and concentrating on use the legacy.
Yeah.
Use it.
Yeah. You don't need to add new legacies.
No, use the original legacy. Do the sequel, do the follow-on. We're happy with that. Like, who the fuck didn't ask the question, oh gosh, I hope Anthony's all right, you know, when he's older. Well, look, we know that he is.
Yeah.
It makes sense that Anthony is the person who would get obsessed. It's part of his history, it's part of his legacy.
And I understand that he would be the perfect candidate to be the new Candyman. That makes perfect sense. I'm not taking away the fact that should be there. I honestly think that the first movie for me is held in such high regard by so many people. And for the sheer reason that it's from Clive Barker. And if you don't know who Clive Barker is, go read the Books of Blood. There's even movies done of the Books of Blood. There is a couple on Amazon or on Shudder that have been made as movies, and I can tell you now, some of them are absolutely.
Watch Hellraiser.
Well, yeah, there is obviously the obvious one, which is Hellraiser.
Introduce yourself the way that I did. Hellraiser.
Nightbreed. Clyde did Nightbreed as well. There's so many.
Oh, I tried to watch that.
Insane things that come out of that man's brain.
Yeah.
But not only that, he created a character unknowingly, originally in the book that he, in the Forbidden, that then he was able to sit down with another guy and adapt and fall in love with. And I feel like this movie, or if you look at the themes of most of Clive's movies, they're all romance in some weird.
In some way, it's like a twisted romance. It's the goth side of the gothic side of the gothic side of it. But it is. I mean, look at when we were growing up. That was our romance. Like I say, we as in the alternative. We would. That's what we would gravitate towards because it was dark, it was romantic, it was sexy, it was,
that's the thing, and
goth fantasy.
when you do look at Clive's movies, they all have this intertwined, like, obsessive love stories, like how Pinhead and Kirsty are like do you know what I mean? And
latex,
the love of like Uncle Frank, and like it's there's just so many, and Julia, and there's so much intertwined in all of his stories, not just Hellraiser, that lead you to believe that Clive Barker is actually a romance writer, and I will not have anything else said about it, so thank you, goodbye. But
no, I want us at some point to delve into the world of Hellraiser, and it's probably more for me on a selfish reason, because I've seen the Hellraisers. Do I understand half of what was going on? I've even watched the newest one where everyone was up in arms about, and because I don't understand the mythology of it all, it was really hard for us to follow. So I do want us at some point to do Hellraiser and not take it as, oh, we're doing Hellraiser. Like, oh, we're doing Hellraiser.
Yeah, I think this was what the second one, the sequel requel was missing, in my opinion. It was missing the romance. It was missing the mysteriousness, the mythos, like you say. It was missing the presence that only Tony gave. There's no
hint of him.
There's scene that I think that they did incredibly well as well, because I've got to give credit where credit's due. It's the poor fucker that had to clean the mirrors in that fucking lift.
Oh gosh, yeah.
When he's in the lift and he looks up and he sees Sherman above him, and he sees the sweet drop on the floor, and he looks up and it's Sherman. That to me was very, very clever. I thought that was a great idea. However, very few scenes. They don't, like I said, again, it just doesn't bring that initial feeling that you get from the first one, and it's not through rose-tinted glasses with this movie at all. It is the fact.
No, this is something I wanted to, like, you want to enjoy.
Yeah, I went into this thinking, for the first time in a long time, I was like, okay, well, we're taking, it's a requel, sequel, redo, reboot. You don't know what to expect. So I was going into it thinking to myself, and I came away watching it the first time thinking, I don't understand it. Am I supposed to understand it? Am I allowed? I
thought I did until I thought I did. I remember that phone call with Anthony, trying to get at, like, to talk with the film through, to be like, oh yeah, I understand what's going on, and two, oh yeah, I like that. And then when I've watched it again today, like I said, I came away with more questions. And it's the Sherman aspect of it all, and the fact that they didn't use Daniel's story, it doesn't make no sense to us. But it doesn't take away from the fact of how much I remember when I remember it was Monday, watching the first one on Monday and coming out of it going, that is a stroke of genius. Excuse me. That is a stroke of genius, that movie. For the time that it came out, for the horror icons that it's up against, that is perfection. My God, I have a tickle. Shall we wrap this up?
Said.
And I have no juice left. Oh, that'll have to do.
That note,
sorry. Yeah, let's wrap candy. Let's wrap the candy back up and put Candyman away. But I'm really glad we did it because I've been looking forward to doing Candyman. Honestly, how we've not said the name before to do it is beyond me. Sorry, I'm gonna cough again. Actually, I'll be a second. Sorry.
She's off. There's no helping her now.
Oh, I think this is all I needed. Yeah. Yeah. It's better. There we go. I can breathe again. I don't put two and two together when I'm starting to cough. It's because I can't breathe properly. It's the same when I have something cold and my chest can't, like it's ridiculous. If I have ice cream, my chest gets really cold and I start to cough. It's because I can't. And I need my inhaler. So sorry, I don't like showing me inhaler on here. Anywho's next week. Do you know what? I don't want to do it, but I do want to do it at the same time. It's like my prized possession is right next to me, and I'm gonna carefully take her off the wall. My Janet Leigh signed picture.
Come on in, the weather's frightful.
Oh. And now I have to figure out how to put that back up. Yeah, next week we're doing one of my favorite movies of all time. Can't wait to. I don't even have to write notes for this. I could actually do this right now. Psycho. We're just doing the original.
Yeah.
We're not double featuring this one.
We're not doing Vince Vaughn and Anne Hesh, so you don't have to worry about that.
We're not going to talk about Anne Hesh's butthole. We're just going to be talking about the original Anthony Perkins, Janet Leigh, Vivian
Leigh. No, Vivian. Oh God.
Oh my God, her name has gone out my head.
But Vivian anyway. Not
Vivian. No.
The young ones, no.
No. Oh my God, why can't I remember her name? That's so bad. Yes, we're doing Psycho. Alfred Hitchcock's Psycho.
We'll go sometime.
Oh, you just made us think of Scream and
All I've got going around in my head is going round the train tonight. Doesn't mean to say.
You know what I've got stuck in my head? I'm Walking on Sunshine. I wonder whose fault that could be.
Sorry about that. I have to say I have issues with that cover, but
I have 3 TikTok accounts, which means 3 times your video comes up. I'm walking on sunshine, and I was like, oh, that's stuck in my head all day.
It worked. I've got a lot of views on that one because of it. So.
Yay! Yeah. So next week, Psycho. Thanks everyone for sticking around. Candyman. We are on YouTube every Monday. The audio for this episode and all the other episodes go up on a Tuesday. Why? Because I do them then. The links for Bleeding Marvelous, Nerdy Up North, and Monsters Up North are where, Dan? Down there. With her beautiful red nails. You're very much a hand model now, by the way. I'm sure my shit nails off. Yeah, if you're on YouTube, please remember to like, share, subscribe if you haven't already, and hit the notification bell so you never miss an episode of anything that's going on in Nerdy Up North. Not just us, there's others. You need to check them all out. And if you are on audio, please let us know. Leave a comment, leave a like, leave a heart, leave a whatever it is. It helps the algorithm, and we can help other. And also, thank you very much to everyone who's joined us on Instagram. Over the last few weeks, it's just every day I'm getting a big influx of followers. So thank you. Appreciate it. Love it. Thumbs up, Dan. Yay. Have I covered everything? Next week, links to audio. Oh well, if there's nothing else left to say goodbye, Dan.
Mother. Bye.
Stay spooky, everyone. Bye.